Hi, Minesh Baxi here, and I'm so excited that my good friend Dennis Tate is here with me. So, welcome, Dennis.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Sure. So, as Dennis will introduce himself as well, but for those who don't know about me, I'm a published author of about 12 books. I have 23 years as a business coach, but the role that I enjoy the most is being a parent, which is why this is very special for me. I know Dennis really is very focused on parenting as well, making sure he influences his children the way he thinks are going to be best for them. Now, I don't know about him, but I made a lot of mistakes. So I'm always willing to share about that. I'm still going through some struggles, especially with my son, trying to, manage certain things about him. But I know you'll get some value from watching, listening to us today. So, Dennis, first of all, tell us a little bit about your background.
I am a mortgage loan officer. I've been in the industry for 20 years. I have a wife, beautiful wife. I have 4 kids, and then a plethora of animals. We'll just say that. So my wife is the ideal person that if you go to a forest and she kneels down by the edge, all the animals flock to her. So they seem to flock to my house. But that being said, she's an amazing woman, and that's where she gets her joy from. So I have 4 kids. My oldest son is 25. And then I have a daughter who's 12, a son who is 10, and then my youngest son who is 7. So I have a wide range of bookends. And I find, it's funny you say the mistakes. I mean, I'm still making them and I'm going to make tons more. I think that we should always, and, you're the pinnacle of this, we're always learning and trying to do things better. And just trying to redirect, if you will, so that way maybe the next kid gets a little bit different and maybe better service or better parent or whatever the case may be. I don't
Well, I can't promise that for myself. So I can tell you that from my experience is that
know.
I think I have a much closer, better relationship with my daughter than my son. My son is younger. And we'll talk about that in a minute because I think it's important to see from different perspectives. So as a parent, I think the part that is different for everybody is what somebody sees their role as. You know what I'm saying? Like over a time period, I've noticed that there are parents who think like, what? If I give them food, if I give them shelter, then I send them to right schools and everything else, I'm doing my job. Nothing wrong with it, right? Some of them,
Right.
hey, I want to show up to every baseball game, basketball game and stuff. That's my job. And that's perfectly fine. And then there are people like me who are like, hey, I want to be the biggest influencer in my children's life if possible. It's not always going to be possible, but it is. So tell me a little bit how you see the role of a parent.
Well, so man, that's a really loaded question. But in my opinion, parents are the guides, right? And we in this society, especially nowadays, man, and I'm 43 now, so actually 44. I just turned 44 last week. And the old adage that when I was younger, I would always hear time flies, or when I was young, this, but it's so true. That's the sad part. When you're young compared to now, things are way different. And I think our jobs as parents we are the guides. We're the biggest fan of our kids. There are different versions of parents, just like you mentioned. One feels like I would say the nurturer, the caretaker, the one that's always doing the different events and what have you. And then the other one's more or less the provider, right? I guess I would kind of look at it from that standpoint. But the role of the parent is to guide their kids. And you can't over shelter them either because they have to fail. And I heard this, and I've said it periodically through my kids. But I can't remember when, it was a few years ago, but I heard a gentleman talk and he said, look, I ask my kids every day at dinner, what did they fail today? And the idea behind that was he didn't want them to be afraid of failing. He wanted them to fail fast so they knew which different direction to go. And I love that because in what we do or what I do in the loan origination field, any business, I don't care what it is, if you look at the top performers and producers and what have you, they fail and they fail fast and they implement. And even I struggle with implementing new and pivoting as fast as I need to. So if we teach our kids younger that it's okay to fail, it's necessary to fail, because that's what gives us our result and helps us to make our way. I think that gives them and this the other thing, we also have to let them cope and learn coping mechanisms on failing and what that means, because in my opinion, this trophy society where nobody can fail, it's literally everybody gets a trophy and you're going to win. No, I'm sorry, there is winners and losers, and I hate to say it, it stinks, nobody likes that, but that also gives that person, I think Simon Sinek once stated that, when you have a kid and you give the trophy kid, they at some point in their life, they will realize and they will feel even worse that the adults have pandered to that person, knowing that they're not as good as what the parents said, right? And so I think it's definitely a fine line of guiding and not sheltering too much. We want to protect, but we need to let them fall on their face and feel emotions so they can learn the coping mechanisms to deal with this world. Because as much as we would love to say it's rainbows and lollipops, it's not. The world could be beautiful and is beautiful, but also could be really cruel, and you need to be equipped to be able to deal with that. So
yeah, exactly. And I learned this principle a long time ago, Dennis, from the book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in this book, Stephen Covey talks about two types of universes we live in. The one universe is called the man-made universe, like the trophy that you just talked about, right? You go to a school, you can cram and pass the test next day. It's a man-made society. Sometimes
right.
you get a promotion because you were just sucking up to somebody. You know what I'm saying? You were
Yeah,
in the
for
right
sure.
place at the right time. The other one is the natural laws. Okay, so natural laws are like sowing and reaping. You cannot speed up the process. Okay, and that's where rain comes, sunshine comes, thunders, storms. That's going to be life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And nobody, God created the world a certain way. Nobody can escape at some point facing natural laws. There is no way.
I agree.
And in man-made way, we can protect and shelter kids. But boy, at some point, nature is going to confront them with the reality of rain, sunshine, thunderstorms, and everything else. And
Right.
as parents, we haven't done a good job of preparing them. They'll be totally unprepared.
Well, and we've heard the statements of there's three types of storms. You're either going into the storm, you're in the storm, or you're coming out of the storm. So it's not a matter of if the storm is going to be coming. It's coming. You just got to
Exactly.
be able to weather it. And
Correct. And if you don't
it's
know how to handle the storm, you will be in the storm for a long time.
yeah. Well, and as you were saying that, it made me think about it. This is a movie quote, but if you've ever watched the movie Tombstone, at the ending where Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, Doc is dying, and Wyatt Earp and him are speaking, and Wyatt tells him that he just wants a normal life, and Doc Holliday says there is no normal life. It's just life, and you just live it. So the idea of trying to have the perfect time, the perfect setting, preparing for the perfect, you're going to worry yourself to death. Where if you just kind of deal with the 24 hours that's in front of you, then you'll be able to roll with it, and you take a lot of that anxiety out. And I think that's another thing. I think we as parents, and I will openly, I am the one that does probably this a lot. I put worry in my kids, not on purpose, but you're always talking about the what ifs. And so now it's trained their brains on the what ifs. My 7-year-old is fearless. He could care less. He's like, I don't care. Whatever it is, I'll just do it. And whatever the ramifications is what it is. As my kids gotten older and they've heard mom and dad say, watch out for this and this and this, now their minds are thinking and they're what's going to be in the future. And that's one thing to kind of prepare, but you also can't over prepare because you'll worry yourself to death.
I'm guilty of it too, Dennis. So there's two of us right there in
Yeah.
that world as well. How about influencing children in career? And then obviously we'll talk about money.
Yeah. So you well know. So I just recently had my 25-year-old working for me, and we're going to call it a year project. My son is amazing. He's got such great charisma. Great. I mean, he's just a great, fun, young man to be around. And he got old enough and mature enough that he was working at an organization for 3 years and kept being moved around in a good way, because he started a year here and a year there and a year there. And the third year he was doing a sales position. And, I literally, first off, I told him for years, if he ever wanted to get into the loan world, I would not hire him. I said, I will help find you a job. I will help get you an interview, and then you have to do it on your own, because I didn't want him to believe as he was growing up that dad was going to take care of everything. I don't want to run that way.
No.
So I never, at any point in time, up until about a year and a half ago, offer a position that was available, because I wanted to keep that dad and child separation. Okay. But the stuff that he was doing at his job, and the conversations that we were having, I'm like, man, you're literally doing the same thing I'm doing. It's just in a different field. So maybe this would work. And I will openly tell him myself, when I offered the position, it interested him. It was a potential career. And so, we went through the hiring process, and I had my area sales manager interview him separately. I had my team interview him separately. And I basically said, don't sign off on him because he's got my last name. He's got to fit culture-wise and what have you. And they did. And you helped me with the DISC survey. The one thing that didn't happen is I didn't connect with you early enough before we pulled the trigger on it. And so we rolled with it. He came in, and I could see that he was struggling. And through that process, I could tell that he was not happy. About 4, 5, 6 months into it, that's when you and I connected, and I'm like, something's wrong. Like, I don't know what's happening. Please help me. And I tell everybody this, Minesh, was crazy. I'm like, within the first 2 minutes of us talking, and granted, a minute and a half of that 2 minutes was us saying, how's the wife? How's the kids? You're like 30 seconds, scroll, and you're like, here's this and here's this. He's not a good fit. And I was just like, oh. So as far as kids and careers and what have you, I used to be, when I was younger, my kid always had to go to college. That's not true anymore. I stopped that probably 5, 10 years ago. And it's because I think we've demonized the trades industry, and everybody had to go to college. And I was one of those. I was a young man that I had a young kid. I had my kid when I was 19 years old. And so I was like, my kid's going to get a college degree, et cetera. But my son didn't go to college. He's not a college kid. That's just not where he wants to be. So I have, as time has gone on, I have morphed into, I want my child to, or my kid, or my young man and woman, I want them to be I want them to be happy with what they're doing. But I'm also trying not to, it's not about you're going to absolutely love everything you do. You can't do that, right? You got to work up to that. But be in a place where you can enjoy being in around people, and that you like it enough to where you continue for a long period of time. And he went back to oldest son went back to his last place last month, which was fantastic. He gets to go back to where his group of people is and his environment, and it worked out for the best of us. But my daughter and my younger sons, I don't care whether they're a basket weaver or whatever, as long as they can support their family. And my oldest, who's 25, he's been out of the house since he was 18 years old. He pays his own bills. He rents his own apartment. He has his own car, and he works his butt off. And that's all I can ask for, is to be a model citizen, to work his butt off, be nice, be kind, and work your tail off in order to move up in the ranks wherever you're at.
And I think that's a very good way to look at it. I know that conversation about Zach. So obviously, being your son, I'm emotionally connected to you. You know what I'm saying? You're a friend,
Yeah.
you're a client, and obviously I'm a parent. So when you're talking about your own son, I'm trying to help you in as many ways as I can to give you very objective information. Like, my daughter is just like me to quite a bit degree. Okay. And I've also worked hard to bring her around, but she's doing well. She's really doing well. She has a good talent in speaking. So one of the goals that we have this year is for her to get on a TEDx stage so that she can actually use that. We are completing a book called, now that you're mentioning about school, 7 critical career skills they don't teach in school.
Oh, nice. Need to have my kids read that.
Yeah, I think it's a must read for every student and then every parent before they decide to put their children in college, because it's a wake-up call to say, hey, the skills that they are learning in schools and colleges, are they really preparing them for the basic skills they will need in life? And most of them are going to be personal skills. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
Okay. And those are never taught in a classroom setting well either. So that's easy enough for me that my daughter is on the right track. She's learning good stuff. She's learning e-commerce and all that. She has taken longer than I thought she would. But then again, I've taken a lot longer than she would have. So
Yeah.
who am I to tell about that? And my
But
son,
it's whatever the time is necessary that the man upstairs did for you. That's it. Some
that's
people will go
exactly
faster,
what it
some
is.
slower. This is what it is.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And my son, I'm having some struggles with it because his personality is just the opposite of mine. So it's like, how do we help him, right? So I think as a parent, it's tough. We want to influence them, not because I want to control my children. That's not the intention. But
Right.
I'm also aware that I can't let an 18-year-old decide for their life either, because I think that's too much trouble, right? Okay, because you have to give them enough foundation before they can make their own decisions, which is why when people are taking $100,000 loan for a student college degree and at 18, I'm like, we
And they come
struggle. I
out
mean,
of the
you're in the
schools.
mortgage business. You're in the mortgage business. You would
Yeah.
think twice before giving $100,000 to an 18-year-old any day for buying anything, right? And here
Minesh,
you're offering them.
I don't have a college degree. I've been to college. I've went, and with my college career, I bounced from different college to college because I had a young man at that age and I was trying to do these different classes. And, I probably, if you add up all the credits that didn't transfer, probably at somewhere I have a
Sure.
degree, but I'm good at math. I love taking care of people, and talking with people. And when you take care of them, you talk to them and you're good at numbers. I mean, you're going to be in some type of world that's mathematical. Like,
Yep.
look at all the people that, not all of them, but look at some very high, well-to-do, creative people. A lot of them didn't go to college because they had the college was the box. And, so those were other reasons, just like, we were talking earlier, is that I want my kids to do whatever. I want to give them some structure, but let them decide, right? So that's why I say this was a trial when Zach came here. I didn't want it to be a trial. I had a goal set for it, but it was something he tried. It didn't work. It was a year of time, but you know what? Now we know, and we just move on.
Exactly. And I totally agree. I've invested a lot of money in my daughter's training and education as well. And I know it will pay off because, again, the best part for her was she was engaged. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. She couldn't have translated everything into reality. But then I've been even a worse student than her. So who am I to talk about? Right?
Right.
She's a better student than I am. I can tell you any day. So lastly, I know you have good principles about learning and teaching about money. So how are you, if at all, you are focusing on helping your children learn about money?
So I remember I have two bookends. I have a 25-year-old and then I have my younger kids. So my oldest son, we started doing a personal budget. So in the core training, which is where I'm coached from, and that was the first time that I had my own version of a budget, but it was the first time that I really dove into a budget and was held accountable on those numbers, and it's helped dramatically. And so I took those same teachings and took it to my 25-year-old so he can work on saving money and what have you. So he's still struggling. He's got to find his way as far as how he does his bills and what have you. But he does, like I said, he lives on his own. He doesn't ask mom and dad for money, and he has some savings. Is it as much as he wants? No, but he's 25, so he'll get there. My younger kids, we talk about doing things commission wise, right? I don't like the allowance, which is I made it another 7 days, so I'm going to get some money. No, there's things that we do around the house, whether it be, laundry or cleaning up with the animals. We have chickens at the house to clean the chicken coop and all the different things that we do. These are ways that they can earn money for a commission. So that gives them the principle that if I want to make some money, I need to go out and do something and put effort into it and enjoy money for that. And then to be able to spend that, right? So, I want to get to a point where they're saving 20% every time they get paid and they can spend it. I mean, they're 12, 10, and 7. So, money, the spending and what have you is not, not something I hammer on them right now. They want to spend whatever they can anyways. The money burns a hole in their pocket. But the idea is to give them an opportunity to work for a commission so they can earn money. And then if they want to buy something, they can use their own funds. And it's funny because they'll be like, hey, dad, I want to buy this. And what that usually means is mom and dad buy it. And I'm super, I've spoiled my kids. All of us want what's best for our kids. So we want our kids to have what we didn't have. So all we did is we're creating more spoiled kids. So I'm working on that. But there's times we go to the store and like, I want that. I'm like, I'm not buying it. You can buy it. I'll pay for it now, but when we get home, you give me the money for it. And it's funny though, they'll be like, I'm gonna put it back. I'm like, oh, it's different when it's somebody else's money, right? So yeah, I wanna teach them to go out and earn it instead of just making it and getting a little wage because I made it another week or 2 weeks or whatever. So
Yeah, I love your thinking. And I did not implement that at all properly. In my opinion, I'm learning the lesson now. But luckily for me, my daughter was working at my in-laws' Chinese restaurant at a very young age. So she was getting paid, so that work ethic came pretty naturally to her. I'm not sure how that happened. I don't have to worry about it. I don't
yeah,
have to worry about her work ethic at all. Whereas
right.
my son, who is turning 16 next month, never had that either as an opportunity if you want to look at it, or he just didn't want to, whichever way you want to look at it. So my daughter can work 8, 10, 12-hour days just like that, right? And that was when she was young. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the sooner the children learn about work ethic, the easier it is going to be for them in their life, because nobody's just going to pay you. I mean, it's just not going to happen, right? Okay. And I think that's the part that we all have to learn as well. So I think you gave some very, very good tips. Any last second thoughts that you would like to give about overall your approach to parenting?
Yeah, I will say, well, and the last thing I'll say when you're talking about your 16-year-old is, my oldest, probably until he was 18. I mean, he didn't have the drive to go out and work hard and what have you. In fact, so we got him primary custody wise when he was, I think he was 13 or 14. And so when he got to the age where he could work, I'm like, you need to work. And he got let go from probably 4 or 5 different jobs. And I remember talking to a counselor of his, and they're like, you know what? He has to learn how to be a good employee. And so he's going to take 2 steps forward and maybe 1 step back, or even 1 step forward and 2 steps back, but he has to learn. And so the job that he's back at now, that he was at for 3 years, that was the longest stint he's been at a company. They got longer and longer as it went, but he had to learn to do that. And so again, I think it's, with your son being 16, it's going to be a learning curve. And so there is going to have to be a time where it's like I don't want to say you're cut off, but you know what I mean? You're kind of like, you have to earn that way, and you're going to get some pushback and some fight and what have you. But what it's going to do now, like my oldest now, number one, because of primary custody wise, he's told his counselor when he was in schools that we saved his life. He's said that to me openly, and just the things that we do, he comes to myself and my wife more because he's not my wife's child. That's her stepson. And so he comes to us as the stability, but it took a while to get there. And so I think your son will see it and he'll do it. It's just a timing thing. And when they're 16, they don't care. They're chasing car fumes and perfumes. That's the things that they're chasing. So I would say give it some time, stay the course. You won't feel the payoff until they're in their 20s. So,
Well, thank you. So he is a fantastic employee. He works at Chick-fil-A, and he's very good at helping out at the church. He's the most responsible person showing up.
oh,
So I don't think
nice.
I have a problem in that area yet. And that's good. I don't think I'll have a problem there because he has learned that enough already, luckily enough. But the thing is the drive, right? It's like, okay, where do I help him get that drive where he's forced to take care of himself? You know what I'm saying? Right. And
Yep.
that's what are the options I'm looking at. And I'm telling him openly, it's like, dude, you don't shape up, you leave the house. Okay. Now I won't put him in homeless. You know what I'm saying? That's not the point, right? Okay. I'm a caring dad. But I want him to be out of my environment where he's forced to handle the reality of survival skills. Do you know what I'm talking about, right? Okay.
That was 18 years old, and that was my wife saying when it was school time to go to college. He did go to college, but in my opinion, he went to go chase his girlfriend, and it didn't work out that year of college. And he came back, and the rule was, and this was, I will openly say, it was an agreed upon deal with my wife and I. But he was my son, right? So he's my
Right.
blood, and I wanted to be like, hey man, just come, I got you. We got room in the bed. It's cool. But she was like, no. He either has to move out and get his own apartment, or he's going back to school. And so when he came back after that first year, he was there for the summer, and he had to either go back to school or he had to move out. And he found a friend of his to live with, and that started the journey. And it was tough for me, just like it sounds like it's tough for you, because like you want him to, but you're going to get to that point where like it's an emotional thing. But that pushing out of the nest so the bird can fly was a very integral part in where he's at right now. So it sucked emotionally, but he's in a better place and he will do great things. It's just he's got to find whatever that path is for him. So
Exactly. In my case, my wife is the one who is the care, is like trying to be that mother hen. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah,
I'm perfectly fine because, to be honest, my father, and I hate to say this way, but my oldest brother, my father destroyed my older brother's life because he babied him too long. You know what I'm saying?
yep,
He didn't let him take responsibility for his actions. And my brother is older than me, he's 7 years older. Until date, he's not seen as a responsible person. You know what I'm talking about, right? Okay.
yep,
And having that in the back of my mind is what is driving me to say, hey, the sooner I can help him learn to be independent, he doesn't have to take care of everything. But you know what I'm talking about? Like, as
yeah,
long as he is seeing that he has to be responsible for what happens to him,
yep,
then he will learn that lesson. And he has good Christian values. He's, all that. I don't have to worry about those things. You know what I'm talking about, right?
yep,
But over a time period, I think all of us as parents have to realize, when do we let go and when do we not? Because some children, and this is exactly what I'm getting from you, is it might take a little longer for them to be able to, be independent. But if you leave them too soon, then they will not be ready and they may make some rash choices, which will not be helpful for anybody, right?
right,
And I think
yep,
that's where the balance comes in play. It's going to be individual by individual. Do you put them in the deep end right away, or do you let them swim for a little bit and then learn a little bit and then go in the deep end? I think it's going to be a tough choice for every parent. And these are the things we struggle with every day, which is why hopefully all who are watching, they have their own views and they're welcome to share here, and they can come on and share their views as well. So Dennis, I know you're a busy man, you're making things happen. This is the beginning of the year. 2024 is going to be a great year, I know, for you. So I really, really thank you from the bottom of my heart for you to come on and tell me your views and just openly sharing. I mean, we are all sharing our openly struggles that we go through, and hopefully some people can learn and benefit from that.
awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate you inviting me on, and I hope you have an amazing 2024.
Thank you.